The Samuel Ilori courthouse in Ogba makes for a fitting venue for those looking for justice. Inside, a courtroom is hearing the latest part of the coroner's inquest into the death of pastry chef, wife, and mother of two, Peju Ugboma, who died in April 2021 following an elective hysterectomy performed at the Premier Specialist Medical Centre in Victoria Island. Dr. Nosakare Asemota is testifying. The anaesthetist was one of the doctors who was responsible for the medical care and treatment for Mrs. Ugboma. For hours, Dr. Asemota answered questions about what he knew, what he saw, and what he did before, during, and after Mrs. Ugboma's surgery and subsequent death. Some parts of his testimony did not mirror his written statement, discrepancies that were queried during his cross-examination, but ultimately dismissed by both he and legal counsel defending him as human error.
If any mistake was made, it was made by us when we typed out the thing for him. And it's of no moment.
So in general, are you satisfied with the testimony given by Dr. Asemota?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He spoke the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
The errors made by Dr. Asemota during his testimony were a cause for concern by the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission.
For the FCCPC, there are a few things that are important from a patient and consumer protection standpoint, and that is, at a minimum, an entitlement to consistent, clear, dependable, and accurate records. And we're able to cross-examine him to try and determine the accuracy of the records and actually how dependable what his source is. The reason why that's very important in patient care is just imagine, this is even just a mess with the dates alone. Just imagine if somebody else is reviewing this down the line. And once the records are inaccurate, then you have a flawed premise. And even the best professional opinion based on a flawed premise, it's not going to be that useful. It becomes even more serious when you're talking about healthcare. And so that for us, from our standpoint, I think we've been able to establish that. And this is not a sport. This isn't about whether a coroner's inquest, there's no winner, there's no loser.
Dr. Asemota was asked during cross-examination if he agreed that something had gone wrong at some point between Mrs. Ugboma's surgery and death. He said nothing went wrong. Soon after, the magistrate reminded Dr. Asemota he was still under oath. The doctor later accepted that something had in fact gone wrong.
If you were listening accurately, he did not say nothing went wrong. He said everybody is still curious as to what went wrong.
That was after the magistrate.
Well, I didn't hear him.
I won't preempt the coroner, but based on his responses to my questions and this point you made, I think that makes his entire testimony questionable. And if your testimony is questionable, if your testimony by itself is not internally consistent, that's your credibility. And if you lack credibility, your testimony isn't worth anything. I think we're all here to discover and address what went wrong. I mean, so for someone to come here and say nothing went wrong, now it is possible for absolutely nothing to go wrong and fatalities still end, even with the best of efforts. But the track record here, the entire trajectory and the record of all the testimony and all the information that is available suggests the contrary. I think we should move from there to saying what went wrong and how can we ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Peju Ugboma's widower, Ijoma, shared his thoughts about the hearing so far.
I'm actually quite satisfied because we're finally we're getting some answers. The primary doctors are being cross-examined, which means we're getting towards the latter stages of the case. Now, listening to Dr. Asemota's testimony, I mean, it was clear for you to see. I mean, this is based on your own judgment. And you know, it's actually laughable, in my opinion, that you'd say nothing went wrong. A patient came in, no pre-existing condition, you assessed her, everything was fine, no chronic illness, and suddenly she gets in on Thursday, she does surgery on Friday, ICU on Saturday, I mean, dead on Sunday. I mean, it's it raises a lot of questions, and I'm happy that we are getting some of the answers to the questions now.
Well, with the close of today's hearing, all roads lead to Monday, the 31st of January. It will be on that day that the lawyers representing Premier will present yet another witness. It's expected to be another doctor or healthcare professional, and during that day, it is expected that that person, that witness, will be questioned and cross-examined. That is, of course, as the coroner's inquest into the death of Mrs. Peju Ugboma continues. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, Lagos.